So voila, welcome to this session. My name is Stephane van Gulick, and this is a road trip to PowerShell Mastery and a fun ride into PowerShell Classes. I have done this talk a few times before in different variants of it. And so today I'm trying something actually a little bit different. So first of all, thanks to all of our sponsors. If you have not seen or talked with them, please go have a talk with them. Really, without them, we will not be able to be here today. They really support this event, and there are not a lot of events of this type, so we should definitely make their stay worth it. So who am I? My name is Stephane van Gulick. I am actually a former blogger. I had a blog called PowerShellDistrict.com, where I've done a lot of my research, and most likely the older generation of PowerShell developers, they probably most know me from that part. I'm also a PowerShell trainer. I am currently a tech lead and a developer working currently in Switzerland, in Zurich. I have also in the past founded several communities, user groups, like the French PowerShell user group, the Basel PowerShell user group, which ultimately started, it lived for a while, it then basically everybody goes either further in their careers and things kind of like fade out. But we still available on Discord for the Francophones who wants to join. Hey, how's it going? Welcome. And voila. So I am also very freshly a YouTuber. I have the pretension to be able to call me like that because I have one video online. Yeah. Woo, woo, woo. Really. So I basically have been always learning things of PowerShell, but also just programming in general. In my basement, I have a desk and everything there, and so I was blogging in my basement, and so basically I was like, oh, I'm just gonna try to do videos from my basement. So like I'm actually basically learning stuff in my basement. So my channel is called Learning in the Basement. I would appreciate a follow if you like. I have other videos in the pipeline. I also have a family and everything, so it's difficult to have a balance. But things are coming slowly, and I'm learning a lot on this point. So for who is this talk? So this talk is really for any PowerShell developer that wants to learn classes. For people that never got their head around classes, what's the problem, with vocabulary, with this instance and things like that. And, for beginner and advanced PowerShell programmers that kind of know it, but want to maybe solidify their knowledge of it. Again, what I was saying, I have done other presentations about classes. This one is a variant of it, more for the beginner focused. If you want to have more in-depth knowledge about classes, so let's say part 2 of this video, you can look at one of my PSConf sessions, I think 2022, I'm not sure. I have a very detailed one there, which is for more advanced cases. So what we will get from this talk? So you will be able to go from 0 to hero in 30 minutes about PowerShell classes. So really, no, maybe not. Maybe not, that's for sure not, but at least it will give you some of the basics, and at least you have all the building blocks, the vocabulary, the concepts that you need to actually be able to comfortable to dive in this topic. And I was mentioning that I've done this talk already before, or like versions of it. And how I structured it before was always I was explaining how classes work and coming into all these details of, hey, this syntax here, curly brace, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, I was like, hey, look what you can do with it. But then, I already lost a lot of people actually on that way. So like, I want to start actually a little bit differently. I forgot to turn my timer on, and also turning it on here. And I want to do it differently, and I want to show you actually from the beginning what you can get with classes, And once you know where you can potentially go, either you stay and we go into the details, or you can go and have a drink, or go see another session. Voila. No problem with that. Huh? So yeah, what can we do with classes? Huh? So why bother in the first place learning them? So one, reusability. Like really, classes is a construct where you, like in the construct itself, there are mechanisms in place where you can simply reuse code. It's not like a module where you're going to import it. It's like the constructs will be able to, like inside of the different elements, you will be able to reuse existing code. So you're going to gain time ultimately. You are going to be able to plan and understand constructs of code without reading a single line of code. Yes, that's true. Like I'm not lying, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute, actually. And also, the other advantage is that we are going to be able to reuse the existing knowledge of other developers that come from other languages. People, smarter people than us, or at least smarter people than me, that have developed tools, concepts, patterns that we can reuse in our code. They have identified existing problems and solve these problems with standardized concepts that we can simply implement in our language, which is PowerShell, our language. Huh? Because we're in PowerShell Conference. So the first one, UML. UML is for Unified Markup Language. It's a language which allows to describe how actually code works. Having classes in place, so actually object-oriented programming, allows us to use UML to discuss about the structure of our code. And so a picture speaks of 1,000 words. So here, although we don't see the details, and frankly, the details here don't really matter that much, so I was talking with Tobias before, who knows what PSHTML is? Who knows that module? Okay, yeah, I see. Okay, cool. I see maybe 1/3, 2/3 of the people. So PSHTML is an open source project I wrote like a time back, and with other people also, by the way. And it is huge. It has almost 10,000 lines, really 9,900 something. And this here is almost the whole content of this module. It's in one image. And so you can clearly see that if you zoom, if you have a look, we can clearly see, although we cannot see the details of it, we can see that parts of it, they are together. There's like something that is above and some other stuff depend on it. We have the same structures there, one thing completely isolated there. We have this vision of code, and we didn't even open the file, right? The other advantage of that is, like, now that we know kind of how a class is structured, we know how to draw it using UML. When you have ideas, so this is where I'm at my point now, actually, my developer journey, is that when I have ideas and I want to sketch them, when I want to sketch, I actually sketch them. I don't write pseudocode or so. I actually sketch a diagram. And this is an idea I had for a feature for PSHTML called assets. And you see, this is the first draft that I wrote. And it's not even code. And there's no for each, there's no switch, there's no anything like that. It is just simple structures. We can also identify and reuse existing patterns, to which I was mentioning. Here, we see again on paper, right? No line of code. Here, I'm using what we call a factory to create a specific type. I don't want to go into details right now, but like I'm reusing something that already existed. I model it right here, and I also model it right there. And then afterwards, I simply had to implement it in my code. It's really simple to add more stuff in existing code without actually even going into the details. And coming about the detail, I will come back to that in just 1 second. So this man, everybody knows it, Jack Nicholson. There's a sentence I really liked in a movie as his, which is called The Bucket List, where he basically goes, he says, there are 3 things in my life I've learned. It is, so 1 and 2, I actually had to remove it because it's a bit, it's funny, actually. So I encourage you to go and have a look at it on YouTube or so. But like, it's not, language is not appropriate. And the third one is, and never trust nobody knows? What? Yeah, no, never trust a fart. That's what he's saying, because he's getting old, and basically with experience, he knows the stuff he cannot do, stuff he needs to do. But for us, like, why am I talking about fart? No, for us, it's about trust, right? And this is why I like that sentence. It's about trust. So who can tell me what this thing is going to do, this function? What are you going to do? Is it going to, is returning something? Will we have, is it going to erase an OU in Active Directory? Is it, I don't know, we don't know, right? Like the construct of a function has no mechanism to show us, to tell us, hey, this will happen, right? So what we have to do, we actually have to go and open internal stuff and read the code. If there was comment-based help, maybe we would have, some idea that, okay, like the developer said it's going to do that. But so can we really trust it? Like, is that really going to happen? Like, maybe you forgot to update the help. We don't know. We actually need to read the code to be sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do, or just have a look at the pester test, see are they all green or things like that. So this is a class, right? Most of the people said they were comfortable with classes. Who knows what this is going to do? Yeah, create an object. See, like he already knew. Like it's going to create an object, an instance of log file, and we're going to have a property called file name of type string. That is one thing we are sure of, because this language construct tell us there are rules in place that tell us that we will have that, right? And maybe there's other stuff in internal stuff, and I actually think it was empty. But anyways, we can trust this. This we cannot. We can maybe trust the developer because we know he's like, but maybe he was tired someday. Voila. So we gain trust with classes. That word is really important. And existing and documented construct, I was talking about the factory pattern before. There are books that exist that have been written by more intelligent people than me, maybe us, I don't know. And what I was saying is that like my factory from here is actually a construct I stole, let's say, I read. So in a simplified version of this book, because this book is pretty thick. I bought it, I regret it, because it's somewhere, yeah. So yeah, it's very thick, and it's like reading the like the manual of your microwave. It's so yeah. So there are like simplified versions of it. And so my point here is that we can reuse existing knowledge and apply it to our language. And also, in my opinion, classes are a bridge, right? They can help you, like in PowerShell, they can, they can help you understand concepts of object-oriented programming, which will ultimately make you understand other languages way easier. You're going to say, hey, okay, for each and all these syntax is easy. It's a bit more complicated with these class-based constructs. But like once you understand it in PowerShell, when you look code, how it's structured, like in C#, Python, well, Python is also special, but like it becomes really familiar, and you don't talk about specificities of the syntax of the code. curly braces or whatnot, you can talk about those diagrams, those constructs, and you can communicate ideas and thing with people from other technologies, other programming backgrounds. Yeah. And also, what I wanted to say is that ultimately, if that was your dream, which was mine actually, you can actually grow from a sysadmin to a DevOps engineer to a DevOps programmer to like a real programmer, actually, like so C# developer, right? And yeah, and so this is believe it or not, it's possible, because I'm actually one of these cases. I basically failed every programming test at school. Really, I was really bad at it. I went into network engineering, and from there I went to system administration, system engineering, etc. I had to do PowerShell, like it was pushed on me, and I grew up on it, picked it up, taught everything I could about the language. I followed the language as it grew, and I ultimately ended up being in a developer position, right? Which is pretty amazing, if I might say. And yeah, and so reasons I have heard not to learn classes is, it's too difficult to learn, it elevates the complexity of my code, blah blah blah. You guys can read all these points, but in the end, there's no, in my personal opinion, like as PowerShell developers, there's no reason not to go into that direction. It would be like 10 years ago saying, VBS, no, I don't need to learn PowerShell. Like VBS is great. Like, I can do everything with VBS. I can do everything with batch. It's like staying there, and indeed, like it can continue. You can do everything as you did before, but it will just add another tool on your belt, which would be too bad, too silly not to have, actually. Yeah, and so with that, what will I learn? What will you guys learn today? So object-oriented programming basics. And yeah, together I want to invite you all to hop into this bus, and we're gonna have a small and cool ride, hopefully, in New-ClassLand. And so this is not at all AI generated, absolutely not. And every single section here represents one part of the OOP programming paradigm, I think. And we are going to travel this together and go in depth into all of these subjects. So yeah, New-ClassLand, and what is this actually all about? So first, the basic vocabulary. So what is a class? Really remember, like this is really from the top from the bottom to the top. A class is a blueprint of an object, and each individual object is an instance that holds data and functionality. Okay, very generic. At the time when I was at school, the teacher already lost me, right? But then, since then, we had PowerShell, and it helped me really to understand these concepts way better when I had PowerShell existing examples, right? So here we have get date. We put it in a variable called date. And if we do .get type, we see it's of type date time. If we look into that variable date, we have properties, date of year, hour, kind. So information, data, the hour, the day of the year, so which is called properties. And we have potential functionality. On that date, we can do .add days, .to string, whatever. We have functionality. So this variable, this instance of datetime has data, information, functionality, method. And so how do we create our own instance, our own class? So this came in PowerShell 5, by the way. And so the keyword, is class. We give it a name, log file, and that's it. This is all we need to do. How do we call it? We call it using this syntax here with the double point new. And then if we look at the type we get in this variable log file, we can see its name here on at the bottom right. It's log file. So we have a new type. And types is what is important, is what matters in OOP and object-oriented programming. Like we have string, before we had datetime, now we have something really new. We have log file. And one thing to remember is that types is something that Jack Nicholson can trust, you know? So to sum it up, a class has data and functionality. I'm specifically saying it often, so people, the vocabulary related to that is properties. It's basically the information, and method, which is when it does stuff, doing. So how does it look like? It looks like this. We have our same class as before, log file, and for a property, I added a property. You simply specify the type of the property, and you give it a name. Very simple. If you add several ones, one after each other, like in a function, you actually don't need to add the comma at the end of the file name here, for example. Like in classes, you just put them one after each other. There's no need of a comma. That's the only difference than with a function on that level. So let's go have a small tour in the lake of methods. We went very, very quickly there in that tour. I'm not very PowerPoint genius. So methods. It's the thing that does stuff, right? This is how we declare, that's French. This is how we create a method in a class. It's very simple. We give it a name, curly brace, parentheses for potential parameters, and curly braces. Inside, then it's just like a function. What differs here is normally we should have a return type. Of course, in example, I didn't put it. But if you don't have a return type in front of the do stuff, for example, it means it returns nothing. By definition, by convention, a method will always return something, and you have to specify what it will return. And I will show you examples of how this works. So method, it does stuff, and this is the moment where I'm going to show you. So like, can I? Okay, it works. Yeah, so the here we see the return type is of type string. I have this method called new file name. It's a silly example in this log file. It is a parameterless method, so no parameters are in it. And we see here at the end, I am returning a string using the return keyword. It's mandatory. See, in a function, it's not mandatory. You can just return something and a function will agree with that. If you remove the return type, but leave the return, it's going to throw an error. It's going to say, hey, what are you doing? You're returning something. You're saying it's not supposed to return something. And the opposite, if you remove the return keyword, it's going to say, hey, you are actually supposed to return a string. Here, I don't have even the keyword return. So, you know, like the PowerShell itself is smart enough to say, hey, something here is wrong, right? And so here we see like we're just generating a random name for a log file. So we had a method, right? We saw it's just if you want a function attached to a class, and so a method overload is the possibility. So yeah, is when we actually have the same method name, but its signature will be different. Its signature is actually the parameters that we have inside of the parentheses. And we still have the parameterless from before. And then the overload is the second one, the same name with the same return type, but with a different signature. And so here we see, this is again just for the example, we give it a name here, and instead of letting it generate, and it will add that thing. And so we can see at the first example we had to generate a name, and now I just add whoop, and I added several times. We can see that it's not hard coded, that the numbers are incrementing here. So basically we have the name whoop and then just a random number, not number but time. It's not random time, it's now actually. So yeah, methods, it's gone. Now let's continue our journey and right into the fabulous world of constructors, right? And this is where those words instances and this can come in and can really confuse you. So what is a constructor? So a constructor is actually a method that controls how an instance of a class is created, in a nutshell. In our very first example, if I add it here, this is what it will look like. The constructor has to have the same name as the class, right? And you should not, and won't even work, specify return type, because it implies, the constructor implies that it will always return itself. So when you do get date, you get that date. That is, it was going through a constructor and then it threw it back. And so here, I added actually two constructors. I have one parameterless and a second one which is just with a parameter called name. See, the first one is called, as I showed here, with this double point new. If you do not specify this parameterless constructor, it's all good. By default, PowerShell will assume it is there, so you don't need to have it. But sometimes it makes sense just to override it and add your own code in it. And yeah, here I'm showing how to call it with this word plop. At the bottom, I'm instantiating both of them, one with the parameterless, and then this line 30 with the word plop. Here I'm struggling a little bit, but we can see that the first thing we received an empty string, and then the second one is that word plop. Again, simple examples, but just that everybody can stay on the bus with us, right? So this is basically what I just showed. So pro tip, make your classes available via an instantiation function. So this is specific to our language, to PowerShell. And this is probably why a lot of people at the very beginning of classes said, classes, it's too complex and everything. Because indeed, that is true. When they added classes, the only way for you to use classes was using the using keyword, using module, and then the name of the module where classes were in it. By doing that, you could only have it at the very top of your script, and that's it. You could not have it like later on. And if you would simply use import module and then call the module where you had your classes in it, then you could load it. Functions and everything that were in there were available, but the classes were not. They were like in a private scope. And this is because, you know, it's built on .NET, and there were like some limitations on their end. And so it was either you use classes with the using or the import module, but you don't have the classes. So what's the point? And actually, there's a very simple, let's say, pattern actually that we can use to go around this, and it's to using this instantiation function. You simply add a new function called new log file, where inside of it, so okay, what I forgot to mention, is that when you do import module, the classes are available internally to the other functions, right? So with that in mind, what you do, you create a new function, new log file, and you simply instantiate your class in that function, and you return it using the return keyword, although it's not mandatory in a function, at least it's clear. And by doing that, as simple as this. And here, like, you can also add a little bit of logic. Hey, if it has a name, give it the name directly or not. And then simply work with what it returns here, this instance. And then you have access to all your method, the constructor, not anymore because it was already created, but the method, the properties, and potential the inheritance, all of that is available to you. And so, yeah, I think this was a break at the very, very beginning of classes. And yeah, when I found this out, this actually solved a lot of my problems. And this really did, like, it created a highway, actually, of possibilities. So yeah, I think we traveled a lot. Like, I think it's time now to go and have like a nice little like a rest at the static property hotel, right? And the bus doesn't know where to go, and he's just gonna park there illegally in that grass. And so static property, what is that? Static. And so we have static properties and static methods, right? We know what properties are, is data. We know what methods are, that is functionality. What is static? So a static property is a property that does not need to be called from an instance of a class. What does it mean? Let's have a look with a concrete example. I don't know, is it playing? Yeah, I don't have the play thing. So basically, it's a property. The only thing you do is you add the word static in front. That's it, to create it. And then you can actually call the data, which is related to a class, without creating an instance of it. One very good example in the .NET world would be like the math class, like the pi number. It's a number, it's a constant, never change. Why would you want to change it? So we don't change it. And so here, like, I'm taking the example of an extension for the log file is always going to be .log. We never want to change it. Voila, just like this. So you have access to data. So you see, like, I'm calling it with log file, double point, and the name of the property. And like, we never created an instance of it. And so this becomes very useful, specifically for methods, in the later step when we're going to look at, design patterns. Then we have the case of, this is the same method, the same video. Static method is basically a method that does not need to be called from an instance of a class. Same thing as a static property, but for method. And so here we have an example. I'm gonna take a sip. So here we see I have this originally this method new file, which was called on an instance. Right? I'm going to change this existing method. I'm going to add the word static in front. I'm changing nothing. I'm leaving the return type. It's still returning the same thing. And then now if I call it, we're going to have this error, right? Remember, trust. And so he's going to say, hey, you cannot call it, like, this method does not exist on this class, new file. But like, it's not smart enough to say, hey, I found a static method. But so the only thing we do here is, like, we call it from the class, and this can also be a little bit confusing. But again, this is one building block for further later. And then with double point, and the name of the method, and then we have actually the same thing as we had before, but it's not attached to this instance. So it's not attached to the variable. What helped me at the beginning is to use the word variable instead of instance, because ultimately when you create an instance, you always keep it in a variable. And yeah, a variable was easy for me to connect with, actually. So this is the same one. Yeah, so the error handling, for the caves of error handling, actually, we're going to come here in the error handling techniques, and quite frankly, very disappointingly, we're not going to talk about error handling, because ultimately there's actually not much to do about it, right? And error handling in classes is just like in functions. It's basically try catch, and if you want to catch the error, do some stuff you can do. You don't have to. And if you don't put a try catch, it's fine. the error is going to bubble up anyways, right, from your call. So ultimately, you're safe. Try catch, everybody knows this construct. I expect everybody in this conference know what a try catch is. What I want to talk about is that once things start to not work as you normally intended to, and you want to see, hey, where is my problem located? You know, it's going to be difficult to see where it fails, where it starts failing. And retracing your steps is actually pretty difficult. And I want to mention that because that is actually what actually helped me, actually. So in a nutshell, what I would recommend is to give visibility is to do these 3 things. I condensed them right here, actually. Use write debug in your classes, use write verbose in your functions, and use write information in your scripts. Write information, so I've been using write verbose and write debug respectively already for a long time. And actually yesterday, 2 days ago, I was talking with a colleague of mine and I was explaining him this pattern, let's say. And he was like, but wait, why don't you, because I also had verbose in my scripts and it was confusing. When you turn on verbose, I would have verbosity from my script, but also from my functions, right? And so if you do it in those 3 layers, you can just activate one part of the verbosity. It would be kind of like -v, -vv, -vvv, like for people from Linux background. And this is how it actually end up looking like. Basically, I do a write debug. What I like to do and what is important is to add those square brackets, or you can create your own convention and specify the class name and the method in which you are, like with those things, so that later on when you execute it, you have this visibility of where it goes. See here, like I'm just launching it once without the debug preference on, and I am going to call it again. This time I'm gonna make debug preference to continue, enabling it, and here we see we have the return statements, and we have this information, and we see actually the path that the code is following, and this is going to be helpful a lot for debugging and also potentially then for error handling, because then you know exactly where it's going and where it's failing. Also, one thing, you have to have your verbose statements for your debug statement before the return statement, because after return statement, it's like once the return statement is hit, he's out of that section, and it will never get hit by that. Just as a small tip. So here, is this not the same one? Yeah, this is the same one. It always replays. I don't know why. So the forest of inheritance. So we have kind of seen actually like now the most of the basic construct is not, there's like some details actually that I specifically not showed because I thought it could be maybe confusing a little bit, but we basically have seen like the basics, and now this is kind of like an advanced functionality of or like it's a primary function of classes, but like it's an advanced concept, let's say. And I like the idea of a forest for inheritance, because like a forest are trees, and we have always like this big stem from which we have branches that span out, and then from these branches you have smaller branches, and voila. And inheritance is really like that. You have this tree, and like it goes so generally from top down, and like it just spans out like that. And so this is the image you need to keep of inheritance. So let's go have a drive, go left, we don't know. Yeah. So the inheritance, ultimately we have this log file, and we can see we have underneath this new file name method, and we are going to create a child class called backup log file, which is specifically for backups. Again, it's a silly example, but just for explanation purposes. And automatically when we do that, he is going to inherit all of the functionality, all of the data, so all of the properties, all of the methods that the parent class has. And it arrives like this onto the child class. How do we create this relationship? It's really easy. When you declare your class, you simply say backup log file, double point the name of the class, and then double point the parent class. And that's basically it. Here we are going to see that in action. So here I added two classes, two child classes. So we're going to have two branches afterwards. But I put a breakpoint here, and I'm going to talk about the second one in a minute. This backup log file, basically, it has one constructor with a parameter name. And here we see, like, I added these debug statements. Now they're going to really be handy. And I'm calling, so this new file. So with the keyword this, and this really confused me a lot. But basically, when you reference to this, you reference to this instance. And so if that child class doesn't have that method available to him, he's going to look into the parent class. And this is exactly what's happening here. And here we can see, thanks to those debug statements, that he is calling here at the very, very beginning. The first thing he did was calling the parameterless constructor from the parent. We didn't, and we never intended for that. So this is a default one. I'm showing it right now because if you don't have declared, that's again French, the parameterless constructor in your parent class, you're going to have an error, right? And the error message is not that clear. So you need to declare it once you want to have inheritance. Then we're going to see is going to this backup log file. Like, we can follow now the debug messages. We see now it's right there where I'm underlining it. And we are exactly in this portion of the debugging messages, and with the start and the end. At the start and the end. And yeah, we have this instance now of our backup log file. And if we look, we have this .backup.log added to the extent, to the file name, which was specific, what we created in that constructor for the backup log file thingy. So I was mentioning I created two. And so for the sake of the example, I created the transfer log file, a very useful log file. And just by creating it, it also got, and making it a child class from log file, it also got access to all of the properties and methods. So new file name, for example. But here, I want to add, because it's a log file, I want to write logs to using a log file. And so by just adding it at the very, very top level, the two childs are going to get it. Then we can do something what is called an override, right? We had overloads before. An override is basically when we're going to redeclare an existing method from an override that existing implementation on the child level. And so this one will be able to use the write log as it was originally defined in log file. And for transfer log file, he is going to have his own implementation. So this can be useful in specific scenarios. Yeah, this is a base construct, and we are going to see it here. So this write log function actually displays just a write host with a specific color based on is it successful or not. So green or red here we see. We see again, parameterless constructor is always called. Although we don't specify it, it's just the inheritance works like that. And then we see here we are on the transfer log file now, the start and the end. And so see, these debugging statements actually really help in understanding now how the code flows. And then you see the success there, that is part of the log file write log. And again here, the fail, the III, is also part of the log file. So we go from the transfer log file up into the log file, down into the write log method. We display the message, and then we bubble up again. And so here we see the method, and the implementation of the method in the transfer log file, where it's just one line of code. And the only thing I'm doing is I am calling the parent method with just one let's say hard-coded value, TRN for transfer. Yeah, just for the sake of the example. So they're clapping there, like I'm not sure if I'm on time. Huh? 1 minute, okay. So quickly about tooling, PS class utils. So we have those constructs. It's all good, but the right CU class diagram actually is a tool I wrote that allows you to generate your own UML diagrams from PowerShell existing classes, PSM ones, right? So you can have these UML diagrams of your own code generated for you, which is really helpful, I believe. Then we have, again, the mount design pattern. So this is really, at the top. Once all of these basics are really well understood, one small detail also what I want to say is that what was really important in all these things, right, is that each time we created an instance, we created a type, right? So we had transfer log file, but it was always of a base type called log file, right? So the parent class is always there. You can always reference that type. So you can always trust. And this concept of a child being still a member of its parent is very important and will allow you to reuse these design patterns. So I was saying this design pattern book is very difficult to read. This one is hilarious. It's really funny. And if you are interested in this subject, I would recommend you go and read this book. Yeah, voila. So I'm at the end. I hope everybody arrived to the developer heaven. I think that ultimately with this concept, you can go from PowerShell to potential other languages. This is basically what I've done. I want to say Harnar Nagar Fragar, which is in my not so good Swedish. Do you guys have any questions? And while not, like I'm putting you my YouTube channel here again. If you want your QR code, would appreciate a like, subscribe, and voila. That's it. So if you guys have questions, I'm open and I'm done. Voila. So any questions actually? Yeah, I see there's a hand. Yeah, it's hell. Yeah. Yeah, so generally, yeah, it's pretty difficult. Yeah, it's from functions to classes, you mean? Yeah. Yeah, so actually I have done, so in COVID, I have done a presentation on that where I had an existing generate file name. Actually, it's funny, I used the same example actually, that I convert into a class. There's like, and I could, we needed to record the video and send it. So that video is, I believe, almost 2 hours long. So just speed it up. But I actually did that there, right? And yeah, and so my personal experience would be to, if the code works and you have tests that prove that it works, do not, convert it too much and just add new stuff with classes and potential migrate just the bits that you need to migrate. That would be my thing. Other questions? No? Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Cheers.